The 47th president swore he'd restore American manufacturing. What he delivered instead was Canada's industrial renaissance. While victory laps echo from Washington, the real winners are celebrating in Toronto boardrooms and Quebec factories. Ford's expansion into Ontario, Tesla's Quebec hiring spree, and Coca-Cola's northern bottling shift tell a story the administration doesn't want you to hear. American workers watch helplessly as production lines go dark and opportunity migrates north. This isn't economic warfare from foreign competitors. It's friendly fire, dressed up as nationalism and sold as victory. How did the dealmaker-in-chief become Canada's greatest economic ally? And when will we admit what's happening right under our noses? 2 years deep into this presidency, America's manufacturing heart is failing. Not from lack of skill or innovation, but because Washington's own policies are choking the life out of domestic production. June 2025 marked a turning point that sent shockwaves through every American factory floor. Steel and aluminum tariffs skyrocketed to a crushing 50%, double the already painful 25% rates imposed back in 2018. This wasn't just policy adjustment. It was economic warfare against American manufacturers themselves. Every company dependent on these essential materials felt the earthquake immediately. From beverage giants bottling your morning Coke to automakers assembling your family truck, the math became brutally simple. Adapt to impossible costs or die a slow financial death. Boston Consulting Group's July 2025 analysis painted the grim picture in stark numbers. These tariffs alone will drain over $50 billion annually from U.S. manufacturers, effectively doubling the previous tariff damage. When combined with other trade barriers cascading through the system, the total economic bleeding could hit $100 billion before year's end. This isn't healthy competition anymore, it's systematic economic suffocation of American industry. But here's where it gets truly perverse. While U.S. companies struggle under this crushing weight, their Canadian competitors operate in a completely different universe. No tariffs on the same materials, no artificial price inflation, no government-imposed handicaps. The playing field isn't just uneven, it's deliberately tilted against American workers and American factories. While tariffs dominate headlines and political soundbites, energy costs are quietly strangling American industry with the efficiency of a python. Since 2022, U.S. electricity prices have climbed a devastating 12 to 13%, turning what should be America's competitive advantage into its Achilles heel. The Energy Information Administration's data tells the brutal story. Residential rates jumped from 15.04 cents per kilowatt hour in 2021 to 17.11 cents by early 2025. Industrial rates followed the same painful trajectory, making energy-intensive manufacturing increasingly impossible on American soil. Now compare that nightmare to Quebec's industrial power rates of just 6.9 cents per kilowatt hour, less than half the U.S. cost. For massive manufacturing operations running 24/7, this isn't just savings, it's the difference between survival and bankruptcy. The math forces companies northward whether they want to go or not, whether they love America or not, whether they care about American workers or not. This energy advantage isn't accidental. Canada invested heavily in hydroelectric infrastructure while America debated and delayed. Now Canadian provinces can offer manufacturers something U.S. states simply cannot: predictable, affordable power that makes production economically viable. Time kills deals, and America has perfected the art of bureaucratic delay into a science. Major industrial projects now average 4.5 years for basic permitting, according to the National Association of Manufacturers' comprehensive 2025 study. That's not 4.5 years to build. That's 4.5 years just to get permission to start building. Legal challenges pile up like cars in a highway accident. Labor disputes stretch for months. Zoning battles consume years. Environmental reviews drag on indefinitely. Each delay costs millions while competitors in other countries break ground and start production. Meanwhile, Ontario and Quebec have revolutionized the approval process, fast-tracking industrial projects in under 18 months. Canada's federal government doesn't just approve projects faster, they actively sweeten deals with funding incentives for EV production, clean technology, and high-efficiency manufacturing. While America debates endlessly, Canada builds relentlessly. The contrast is stark and devastating. A company can conceive, approve, build, and begin production in Canada in the time it takes just to navigate the permitting maze in most U.S. states. When speed to market determines survival, geography becomes destiny. Here's the cruel irony that should keep every American policymaker awake at night. Policies explicitly designed to protect American jobs are systematically driving them away. By making U.S. production more expensive through tariffs and more legally complex through bureaucratic obstacles, America First has accidentally become Canada First for any manufacturer operating in reality rather than rhetoric. The very companies these protectionist policies aim to help are now packing up their equipment, their expertise, and their employment opportunities for more hospitable territory across the northern border. This isn't theoretical economics, it's your daily reality, hidden behind familiar brand names and patriotic marketing campaigns. American consumers unknowingly drink from Canadian-made cans, drive American trucks assembled in Ontario, and power their homes with batteries manufactured in Quebec. The products look the same, the brands feel familiar, but the economic benefits flow north, while American communities hollow out. The most shocking example might be sitting in your refrigerator right now. Roughly 70 to 80% of Coca-Cola's North American aluminum cans now roll off production lines in Brampton, Ontario, not Atlanta. Not anywhere in Georgia, not anywhere in America. The 50% aluminum tariffs made domestic can production financially impossible almost overnight. This isn't a gradual shift or a strategic diversification. This is economic exile forced by American policy. Hundreds of trucks loaded with Canadian-made Coca-Cola cross the border daily, carrying what should be American-made products to New York, Ohio, and Michigan consumers. That familiar red label and classic script now masks northern manufacturing reality that Coca-Cola would prefer you never notice. The jobs that should be supporting American families in American communities are instead supporting Canadian families in Canadian communities. The tax revenue that should be funding American schools and American infrastructure is instead funding Canadian schools and Canadian infrastructure. All because American policy made American production impossible. Ford's transformation tells an even more devastating story. The company's Oakville complex in Ontario is rapidly becoming the North American headquarters for Super Duty truck production trucks that scream American identity and American values while being assembled by Canadian workers. A combined $590 million investment from Canadian federal and provincial governments is systematically steering production away from expensive, regulation-choked U.S. facilities. Ford hasn't just dipped its toe in Canadian waters, the company has already committed over $3 billion to expand Oakville's capacity by 100,000 Super Duty units starting in 2026. Your made-in-USA pickup truck, the symbol of American industrial might and working-class pride, increasingly carries Canadian DNA. The irony is suffocating. The more America tries to protect its automotive industry through tariffs and trade barriers, the more that industry migrates to countries without those self-imposed handicaps. Even Tesla, the supposed champion of American innovation and manufacturing, has quietly shifted critical production north. Tesla's revolutionary 4680 battery cells, the technological foundation of the company's future vehicle lineup, are now manufactured by Hybar Systems in Markham, Ontario, not in Nevada's much-hyped gigafactory. Canada offered Tesla something America couldn't or wouldn't: faster regulatory approvals, dramatically cheaper electricity, and stable, predictable EV policies that don't change with every election cycle. When innovation meets practical economics, patriotic rhetoric becomes irrelevant. Companies go where they can succeed, not where politicians want them to go. This represents more than just manufacturing migration. It's the exodus of cutting-edge technology development and the high-paying engineering jobs that come with it. America isn't just losing assembly line work, it's losing the innovation economy that was supposed to be its competitive advantage. General Motors' partnership with South Korea's POSCO Future M perfectly illustrates how American trade policy accidentally built Canada's industrial base. Their $600 million cathode material factory in Bécancour, Quebec, received nearly $300 million in support from Canadian government support that made the facility operational by early 2025. This isn't just another factory. This plant powers GM's entire Ultium battery production system for vehicles like the Silverado EV, allowing the automaker to completely bypass U.S. tariffs while accessing the same North American market. GM found a way to remain competitive by essentially becoming Canadian for critical components. The facility represents everything America claims to want: advanced manufacturing, clean technology, high-paying jobs, and strategic supply chain control. Instead, American policy drove all of those benefits north, while American workers and American communities got left behind. The numbers tell a story, but the human cost tells the truth. Flint, Michigan. Once the crown jewel of General Motors' manufacturing empire and a symbol of American industrial might, lost nearly 1,200 auto-related jobs between 2022 and 2025, according to Michigan Department of Technology, Management, and Budget labor data. These aren't just statistics in a government report. These are real people with real families facing real consequences. Former assembly line workers who once earned middle-class wages with full benefits now piece together economic survival through retail jobs paying half their previous salary, part-time logistics work without benefits, or driving for rideshare companies with no job security. One former GM employee, who asked not to be named, now earns less than half his 2021 salary working overnight warehouse shifts while struggling to pay his daughter's medical bills with drastically reduced health insurance coverage. "I built cars that people were proud to drive," he said. "Now I move boxes for people who don't even know my name." This is the human face of trade policy. This is what happens when economic theory meets family budgets and community stability. Lima, Ohio faces what economists clinically call a skills vacuum, but residents experience as community death. Plant closures don't just eliminate individual jobs, they destroy entire economic ecosystems built around manufacturing excellence over generations. Younger workers with mobility and options flee for opportunities in other states or other countries. Older workers remain trapped, unemployed, undertrained for new industries, and abandoned by the very policies that promise to protect them. The institutional knowledge, the specialized skills, the manufacturing culture that took decades to build disappears in months. Local businesses that depended on factory workers' paychecks close their doors. Schools lose funding as property values collapse. Municipal services get cut as tax revenue evaporates. What was once a thriving industrial community becomes a cautionary tale about the unintended consequences of protectionist policy. These aren't just economic adjustments or market corrections. These are American communities dying while the production that once sustained them thrives across the Canadian border. The USMCA trade agreement, sold as a victory for American workers, inadvertently created the perfect conditions for Canada to become a manufacturing paradise, while the U.S. imposed punishing economic duties on its own industries. Despite brief exemption windows that provided temporary relief, looming 25% auto tariffs on non-USMCA parts, and floating 35% levies starting August 1st, sent shockwaves through every manufacturing sector. Canada didn't just respond to these opportunities, they strategically capitalized on them. Massive EV investment grants, streamlined approval processes, and coordinated federal-provincial support arrived precisely when U.S. plants faced tariff uncertainty and labor disputes. GM's Quebec cathode facility isn't a minor side project. It's absolutely central to the company's goal of producing 1 million EVs annually across North America. While America debates policy endlessly, Canada executes strategy relentlessly. The result is predictable. American companies become Canadian companies in everything but name, American jobs become Canadian jobs in everything but location, and American industrial capacity becomes Canadian industrial capacity in everything but flag. Even the most loyal political allies are beginning to question the strategy publicly. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer warned bluntly that our state is being punished twice, first by global competition, now by our own federal tariffs, during a July 2025 manufacturing summit in Lansing. Her words carried the frustration of watching Michigan's industrial base migrate north while federal policy accelerated the exodus. Republican senators like J.D. Vance, typically supportive of the administration's trade approach, have begun questioning why Ontario's EV supply chains thrive and expand while Ohio factories implement hiring freezes and consider permanent closures. The cognitive dissonance between policy goals and policy results is becoming impossible to ignore. Conservative media outlets like Fox Business continue defending the tariffs as necessary long-term corrections to decades of unfair trade practices, even as Ford, GM, and Tesla quietly file exemption requests with the U.S. Trade Representative's office. The gap between public rhetoric and private corporate behavior reveals the true impact of these policies. A July Wall Street Journal editorial asked the question that haunts every honest policy discussion. If U.S. trade policy is winning, why are U.S. jobs fleeing? The White House's continued silence on this fundamental contradiction speaks louder than any campaign slogan or victory speech. Industry analysts and economic researchers suggest that reshoring American manufacturing remains theoretically possible within 5-8 years. But the price tag is staggering and the political obstacles may be insurmountable. A comprehensive June 2025 Brookings Institution report outlines the minimum requirements: massive federal subsidies to offset competitive disadvantages, accelerated permitting reform to match Canadian approval speeds, and a nationwide recalibration of labor costs to compete with global markets. The fundamental challenge isn't technical, it's political and economic. American voters consistently refuse to pay higher prices for identical goods just to support domestic production. American corporations won't voluntarily sacrifice profit margins for patriotic symbolism when shareholders demand maximum returns. American politicians won't support policies that increase consumer costs in election years. Democrats attempted to address the crisis through the Made Here, Stay Here initiative embedded in the 2025 Jobs and Competitiveness Act, but the legislation stalled in Congress by August amid concerns about cost, feasibility, and unintended consequences. The political system that created the problem seems incapable of solving it. When iconic American companies like Ford, Coca-Cola, and Tesla quietly migrate their production north of the border, which industries can honestly claim to remain truly American? Can patriotic branding and marketing campaigns preserve domestic manufacturing when energy costs double, regulatory compliance triples, and tariff policies make domestic production economically impossible? The reality confronting every American consumer is stark and undeniable. An increasing percentage of products labeled American-made now carry Canadian manufacturing stamps, just not ones you'll find on the consumer packaging. That Coca-Cola in your refrigerator, that Ford pickup in your driveway, that Tesla battery in your garage, maybe even that Campbell's soup in your pantry. Have they already crossed the border while maintaining their American brand identity? Made in USA has evolved from manufacturing guarantee to marketing aspiration, from production reality to consumer fantasy. The industrial muscle that once defined American economic power and working-class prosperity now flexes primarily in Canadian facilities, powered by American policies that accidentally built our northern neighbors' economy while systematically dismantling our own. The 47th president promised to bring American jobs back from overseas. Mission accomplished. They're just not coming back to America. They're going to Canada, powered by American policies, funded by American consumers, and benefiting Canadian workers and Canadian communities. This isn't the result of foreign competition or unfair trade practices by other countries. This is self-inflicted economic damage, wrapped in patriotic rhetoric and sold as victory to voters who deserve better. The greatest threat to American manufacturing isn't China or Mexico or any foreign competitor. It's American policy itself. The question isn't whether this trend will continue. The question is whether American voters will demand accountability from the politicians who created this mess, or whether they'll continue accepting patriotic theater while their economic foundation crumbles. What do you think? Have you started noticing the subtle shift in where your everyday products are actually manufactured? Are you willing to pay the real cost of truly American-made goods, or do you prefer the comfortable fiction of patriotic branding on foreign-made products? Share your thoughts below and subscribe to Game of States for more unfiltered analysis of the policies reshaping American economics and the politicians who profit from the confusion. If you found this video valuable, give it a like and subscribe for more. Also, for more coverage of US-Canada trade news, subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be the first to hear the news.